Continuous voter registration is still on. Use the opportunity to register to vote. Or the news this afternoon. ASU calls or strike. Niger governor mourns as tanker explosion kills at least 35 persons. Supreme Court reserves judgment on suit challenging emergency rule in River State. Governor Fubara vows to relocate the hazardous dump site along Airport Road. And we've got full reactions to the Nnamdi Kanu protest at the NSAS anniversary. I'm Ifechukwu Muonyili with the news. Now, the Academic Staff Union of Universities has suspended its 2-week warning strike after getting fresh assurances from the federal government and the National Assembly to meet its demands. ASU President Professor Chris Piwoda announced the suspension at a press briefing in Abuja, explaining that the decision followed interventions by the Yayale Ahmed-led committee and the Deputy Senate President. Now, the union says the no work, no pay policy after the strike began, while the Senate has been left with no other option. While the Senate has been left with no other option.
I am thinking that doesn't have any other option. Injury to one is injury to all. When we see this unfriendly management behaviors towards the workforce, of course we are bound to support such unions to see how we can bring it to an end. So NS is supporting us to say this must come to an end, so we can be able to see how we can see the workers through, because they are there to force workers to submission in whatever form they can be able to. But if we are united and have this solidarity, I think they will be mindful the way they are dealing with workers and the conditions of service.
Now, she also appealed to the federal government to meet ASU's demands.
So I pray that God will touch the heart of the federal government. Every Minister of Education has always been an ASU member. But when they get there, they forget. That is the problem we have. When we climb to leadership, we forget our main focus. We forget what we stand for, because we want to do the bidding of the government that has employed us. And that's exactly the bane of our society. I just pray that they will begin to listen and then do the right thing.
Now, responding to claims that Labour is trying to frustrate the current administration since it was less vocal under the previous ones, Itubo clarified that the NLC as an umbrella body only intervenes when called upon by its affiliate unions. The former Labour leader says that some union leaders prefer to handle their challenges independently in other administrations.
And the truth is that many people are still not enlightened on the operatives of labor. Sympathizer cannot cry more than the bereaved. It's only when you have seen that those issues are above you, then you're not cry to the higher authority, which is the umbrella body. Come to our aid, or this is what is following us up. And of course, they can come. Some of the union leaders feel that they are comfortable with the management. They can handle their matters the way they want to handle, because they are having rapport and good relationship with the management. You will not blame that on the NLC or TUC. And so NLC comes in exactly when they are invited by the in-house union.
Still talking national issues, but this time a tragic one. At least 35 people have been killed and about 40 others injured in a tanker explosion. The explosion happened around 11 a.m. on Tuesday at Esau and Badegi communities along the Bida Agaye Road in Kacha local government area. Now, the Federal Road Safety Corps Sector Commander, Niger Command, Hajia Aishatu Saadu, confirmed the incident on Tuesday in Minna. Eyewitnesses say the victims was scooping fuel from a fallen tanker when it suddenly exploded, triggering a massive fire that burned several people beyond recognition. Chairman of the Niger State Tanker Drivers Association, Farouk Kawo, described the incident as devastating and avoidable, noting that the tanker was conveying petroleum product from Lagos to the north when it crashed. Kawo says more than 30 tanker accidents had occurred on the Bida Agaye Road this month alone, blaming the crashes on the poor state of the road and the reckless rush by residents to scoop fuel from fallen tankers. He called on government Omar Bago to urgently fix the road to prevent more tragedies. Meanwhile, Niger State Governor Mohammed Omar Bago has commiserated with the people of Esau in Kacha local government area after the petrol tanker explosion that killed dozens and left several others injured. Now, in a statement by his chief press secretary, Bologi Ibrahim, the governor says the incident is worrisome and deeply painful for the state. He urged residents to stop risking their lives by scooping fuel from fallen tankers, warning that the consequences are often deadly. Governor Bago commended the state emergency agency for its swift response and assured that the government will support victims and their families. All away from the tragedy and back here in River State, if you are a resident along the Obirikwere Airport Road or pass through that road, and from the dump site there, let's tell you that there is good news. Now, River State Governor Siminalayi Fubara says the dump site along the Obirikwere Airport Road will soon be relocated. Governor Fubara made this known while at the proposed new dump site in Omweke Igwurutan area. Ikwere local government area. Now, he says the current dump site poses serious environmental hazards and praised the River State Waste Management Agency, RWAMA, for its effort to keep the state clean.
So we're making alternative arrangements so that we can have permanent place where we can start dropping up our refuse. There's something going on before I came in. Whichever one that is done rightly, we have not concluded the issue of the borrow pits, but the access road to these borrow pits, I think the government has doing something about it. So we'll make sure that everything that needs to be done to make sure that government owns these borrow pits is done.
The governor was taken around the new site by the chairman of Ruwama Board, Dr. Samuel Wanosike, and the managing director, Dr. Ibimina Nwokoma. Our correspondent reports that Governor Fubara also inspected the ongoing construction of 29 four-bedroom duplexes for permanent secretaries in Ilimbu Obiakpo local government area and expressed satisfaction with the progress of work. Now, in a related story, to strengthen the healthcare system in River State, the state government has allocated over 15% of the 2025 budget to health, exceeding the WHO's recommendation. Deputy Governor Professor Ngozi Odo revealed this at the opening of the 2025 Physicians Week in Port Harcourt. Now, she says the state remains committed to investing in healthcare and embracing innovations like artificial intelligence while maintaining ethics and the human touch.
We remain committed to strengthening our healthcare system through robust policies, strategic investments, and a people-first approach. In the 2025 appropriation bill, allocation to health in River State was over 15%, which is actually higher than the WHO minimum, and we can only get better.
The Rivers Deputy Governor says this year's theme, Healthcare as a Value Chain, Building Efficiency from Policy to Patient, highlights the need to connect sound policies with better service delivery, putting patients at the center.
As we embrace innovations such as AI, artificial intelligence, we must also remain vigilant about the ethical implications and uphold the irreplaceable role of the physician. The physician can never be replaced with robotics. Physicians are physicians, robots are robots. And so we must also remember that physicians are healers, they are advocates, they are guides.
We're not done with the River State government now. This time, let's inform you that the delay by Governor Siminalayi Fubara in appointing commissioners is drawing reactions. Director of the Institute for Research, Leadership and Capacity Development, Professor George Ahonaya, says it could be linked to politically incompatible individuals around the governor. He spoke with our correspondent, Onyeka Chimusu, as the governor marked 1 month since returning from suspension. Professor Ahonaya advised the governor to be diplomatic and embrace inclusive politics.
That will be more diplomatic, more political. There's no politician that does not politic to have followers, insiders. He should not be vindictive or completely compromise, and also play politics of inclusiveness so that he will not be misunderstood.
Moving on now, River State House of Assembly Speaker Martin Amehule says his work as Speaker will be remembered long after his tenure. He said this:
Assembly, I will do so with my shoulders high because I know our fed. And I say so, we have exchanged this idea of seeing the legislature as just, in quotes, rubber stamp.
He also spoke about some of the controversial decisions taken by the Assembly, noting that many have since been upheld by the Supreme Court.
I don't know if some of us will remember sometime in 2024 when we had this Rivers State Local Government Amendment Bill. So in our own wisdom, we felt if the Constitution has allowed Mr. President, allow people at the subnational, why not allow same thing to happen at the local government level? And that was just the argument. And so when the House of Assembly passed that bill into law, what happened? But just to inform those of us who are not aware, this matter has been settled by the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court of Nigeria has agreed with me and the Rivers State House of Assembly.
The speaker described the legislature as an endangered institution, recalling the demolition of the State House of Assembly complex. The Vice Chancellor of the University of Port Harcourt, Professor George Owunari, attended the event while Abia State Governor Alex Otti was represented. And let's talk legal matters. The Supreme Court has reserved judgment in a suit challenging the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State. A 7-man panel led by Justice Eyan Okoro adjourned after all parties adopted their argument. Counsel to the plaintiffs, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Eitayo Jegede, said the case is not challenging the president's power to declare an emergency, but questions how far such powers can extend to affect elected offices like the governor, deputy, and lawmakers. But Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, argued that Rivers was in crisis, prompting the president's decision in March. He says Governor Fubara, his deputy, and the State Assembly were only suspended to restore order. The Supreme Court will communicate a date for judgment to all parties. Now, in politics, the Federal High Court in Abuja has fixed October 31st for judgment in a suit seeking to stop the People's Democratic Party from holding its planned national convention. Justice James Omotosho set the date after lawyers for both sides adopted their argument, while reaffirming that his earlier date. The case was filed by PDP officials from Imo, Abia, and the South-South Zone, who want to hold the convention scheduled for November 15 and 16 in Ibadan. They argue that no valid Congress was held in 14 states before the party's leadership announced the convention dates, insisting that INEC's monitoring role under the law was ignored. However, lawyers representing the PDP leadership maintained that the matter concerns the party's internal affairs, which the court. Now let's talk Nnamdi Kanu. A constitutional lawyer, Professor Richard Mukocha, says the recent protest calling for the release of Nnamdi Kanu stems from what he calls an abuse of the presidential power of clemency. Professor Mukocha of the Rivers State University told correspondent Mekotoka that protesters want the president to make a political decision on Kanu's case, like other pardons they consider less deserving.
It is that abuse of the power of clemency by the presidency that has led to the moral question behind this protest now. Properly speaking, they are within their rights if they are thinking that there is a stronger moral case for the case that they are arguing for than some that the president has granted clemency, which I understand is what the pressure is being paid for the federal government to take a political decision to address that political problem the way it has addressed other problems that the protesters considered less deserving of clemency.
He says while it's unlawful to question Kanu's trial, there's nothing wrong with demanding his release on moral grounds.
But again, the matter before a court is a trial, and the court has to make finding one way or the other. Persuading the federal government to withdraw charges or to pardon and all that, it's all right, but we have to recognize that it's a court process, and it's when the court has made an order that the person can be freed, unless the charge is withdrawn by the federal government.
Recall that Monday's protest led by activist Muonyili Sowore paralyzed part of Abuja after the arrest of Kanu's brother Emmanuel Kanu, his lawyer Aloy Ejimako, and 6 others. Meanwhile, Nnamdi Kanu's lawyer Aloy Ejimako has assured submissions and ordered they remain in custody till Friday. For the chairman of the Ifechukwu, he fears more follow if Kanu's brother and lawyer are not released. Oko says the protest isn't about reviving the Biafra agenda, but about the continued detention of Nnamdi Kanu.
From what we hear, there is going to be murder of protest if they don't release Nnamdi Kanu's brother and lawyer. Now, come to think of it, even as security agencies, common sense would have taught them the man you are holding is causing instability in the entire country. How much more now you are also holding his own brother and lawyer, and you think it's no. Even interested in Biafra is not the issue. This man has been detained and over-detained.
Commercial drivers are complaining, and we have the latest on the 5th anniversary of the NSAS protest. Details coming up after this break.
This is the news on 92.3 Nigeria Info.
You're welcome back. Now, commercial drivers in River State are again calling on the government and security agencies to clamp down on the activities of area boys operating in motor parks across the state. This follows a recent protest by the drivers over what they describe as unchecked extortion. Speaking on Nigerian FM's Hard Facts, the state chairman of the Commercial Drivers Welfare Association, Christopher Ezali, alleges that some of these touts carry weapons and collect illegal levies on behalf of police officers and court groups.
There is no means of identification. Just give me your police money, give me your Ackman money, give me your executioner money. Can you ask for men that you don't know the kind of arms inside their pocket? Question. Can one person on steering overpower 7 men? We know them, they are working freely, doing their dirty job freely. The worst part of it, they claim monopoly of the roads.
Ezali also lamented the daily harassment and assault faced by drivers who refuse to buy illegal tickets. Time to talk about the anniversary of NSAS protests. 5 years after the protests, some stakeholders say the government and the police have done little to reform the force. Former NBA Vice President and member of the NSAS National Panel, John Martins, in a chat with correspondent Obioreware, said no officer indicted for extrajudicial killings has been punished. He said the panel did its part, but the federal government failed to implement its recommendation. Martins adds that police officers continue such act because there are no consequences.
The atrocities that the police were accused of, they are still onto it. They arrest arbitrarily, people are killed unnecessarily. You see the videos all over Nigeria where Nigerians complain about brutality from police officers and like that. Well, maybe I will say sometimes the police high command, where there's outcry on a particular issue, they do try to see what they can do. But generally, nothing has really changed. The indiscipline in police has continued, and this has to do with no repercussion for acts done by police officers.
In the same vein, Executive Director of We the People, Ken Henshaw, says most states deliberately withheld their panel reports to divert attention from the protests.
Panels of inquiries that were a negotiation point by the government in response to the demands of the protesters. People went and laid their complaint of abuse and absolutely nothing happened. So it gives the impression that the government only set up these panels of inquiries at the state level to deflect attention from the protests, to get the protesters off the streets. And immediately the protesters left the street, the government abandoned that commitment.
He advised state governments to demand accountability from the police to curb unprofessional conduct. The Senate has passed a bill prescribing life imprisonment for anyone convicted of defiling a minor with no option of a fine. Lawmakers say it's a major step toward protecting children's rights. The bill, which amends the Criminal Code Act, was earlier passed by the House of Representatives. To weather forecast now, if you live in River State or neighboring states like Bayelsa and Abia, you should expect cloudy skies with chances of morning thunderstorms and light rains from today, Wednesday to Friday. This is according to the Nigeria Meteorological Agency, NIMET. Now, NIMET says residents in the southern part of the country should expect moderate rains and thunderstorms later in the day across most parts of the south. And now in business, Nigeria plans to push for a higher oil production quota at the upcoming OPEC meeting in November. Minister of State for Petroleum Resources Oil, Senator Heineken Lopobiri, says the country's current quota of about 1.5 million barrels per day no longer reflects its actual capacity. Speaking in Abuja, Lopobiri says Nigeria now has the production strength to sustain at least 2 million barrels per day. He added that the November meeting will be the right platform to press for an upward review that better represents Nigeria's output potential. And to sports now, Victor Gyökeres ended his 7-game goal drought with a brace in Arsenal's 4-0 win over Atletico Madrid, bringing visible relief to the striker. Manager Mikel Arteta says the goals are a reward to Gyökeres's hard work and persistence despite recent frustrations. Now, the £64 million signing has been playing more than expected this season due to Kai Havertz's injury, featuring in most of Arsenal's matches. Arteta says his teammates' reaction shows how much they value his contribution beyond scoring, adding that the striker has regained his confidence. On the international scene, at least 7 people, including 2 children, have been killed in a wave of Russian drone and missile strikes on Ukraine. A kindergarten was among the buildings hit in Kharkiv, while several parts of Kiev also suffered heavy damage. Ukrainian officials say at least 26 people, including children, are injured. President Volodymyr Zelensky says the attacks show Moscow is not facing enough pressure to end the war. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump says his planned summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Budapest has been put on hold after the Kremlin rejected fresh calls for a ceasefire from Trump and European leaders. That's the news, but here are the headlines we brought you at this hour. We informed you that ASU has called off its strike and given the federal government 1 month to resolve all issues. We reported that at least 35 people have been killed in a tanker explosion in Niger State, with at least 40 others injured. We also told you that the Supreme Court has reserved judgment on suit challenging emergency rule in River State. You heard Governor Fubara vowing to relocate the hazardous dump site along Airport Road. The news was edited by Ufoma Ebamano. To reach the news team, send an SMS or WhatsApp to 0808-721-7215. I'm Ifechukwu Muonyili. Many thanks for listening.
Everyone says I'm beautiful and bold. They say I'm fashionable. And to crown it